Are you curious about discovering ways of making your life better? Then welcome to my podcast. I'm Bob Nickman, and this is The Exploding Human. Listen in while I talk with all kinds of people in the fields of personal growth, health and healing, alternative therapies, psychology, spirituality, environment, and the future. I'm looking for those answers that make life better for everyone. You'll meet cutting-edge practitioners, doctors, artists, filmmakers, business people, and those who have overcome challenges. The brave, the curious, anyone who is out there helping us humans to explore, expand, and explode. Hey, it's Bob Nickman. Thanks for listening to the podcast. Got a great guest today. I always say that, but I love these guests that I get. And today's guest is SUSAN FOXLEY. And this is a real wide-ranging interview about a lot of different topics because Susan does a lot of things. From yoga, teaching yoga, and teaching yoga to people with chronic pain and how she handles working with people with chronic pain. She does some hypnotherapy. She does some life coaching. And we talked about all this kind of stuff, meditation, prayer, mindfulness. And she's been writing a blog for a long time, and she has a book with all her blog posts called Effed Up to Fixed Up, which is also a workshop that she teaches. And I really enjoyed talking to her because she's a very positive, interesting person who came from a place that was not that and has transformed herself over the years with lots of study. She's a very curious and interesting person who's read quite a bit, and there's a lot of great books and people she mentions in the podcast. So really pay attention. There's some wonderful information. It was a great time. So check this out, SUSAN FOXLEY. It's a beautiful day here in Santa Monica, California.
It's gorgeous.
It's getting dark at like 2 p.m. now.
Yes.
So I'm glad to be here because you do so many interesting things, from yoga to hypnotherapy to life coaching. So let's just see what happens. What I was really interested in when I first started talking to you was your work with people with chronic pain, because I think a lot of people have that.
Yes.
And it's not talked about all that openly. It's almost like, I don't think people, maybe there's a little stigma to it, or people just don't want to either burden other people or they have shame about it. Tell me what your experience is and how you got into that.
Oh, sure. Well, first of all, I've been teaching yoga for 25 years, and I started doing that in San Francisco. I went to University of San Francisco, and I had a spiritual teacher who said, Susan, follow your bliss, like Joseph Campbell says. And if you follow your bliss, you will never work a day in your life. So I got into yoga in my early 20s, teaching yoga, and I loved it. And I still do today. I'm 25 years into it. And I got into private yoga because my son had issues, and I couldn't teach big classes of 40 people. I was widowed, young in my early 30s. I was widowed. And so the only people who really needed private yoga were people with chronic illnesses. So I was dropped into, and I also had a massage background, which was wonderful too. So I started teaching seniors in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s with chronic illnesses. And this is when I was teaching yoga in my 30s here in Santa Monica. I moved here with my husband from San Francisco, and my late husband passed away when my son was 2. And I was teaching big yoga classes then. So I started getting into private yoga. And so anyhow, I have huge empathy for people with chronic pain, huge empathy for back pain, knee pain, hip pain, even emotional pain. I'm such an empath, and I want to fix people. It's a real curse because I love, and I know that I really can't. I can only be a channel, but I really have a hard time seeing people suffer. And I equate physical pain with people driving through life with one foot on the gas and one on the brakes. And they're going through life, and it usually has to do with the sympathetic nervous system. I find that people that are chronically in flight or fight, And in stress, I think 80% of physical pain, not necessarily all, but 80% is from stress, Bob.
That does not surprise me, but I think it would surprise most people.
I do believe that it starts, and what I'm studying as I now have become certified in clinical hypnotherapy, and the reason why I went that route too is because from the ages of 1 to 7 years old, we are under the state of hypnosis. Our brains are in theta waves. And so whatever we're exposed to from the ages of 1 to 7 is kind of downloaded in our subconscious mind. And that sets the foundation for the rest of our lives. So if we grew up in a family where there's a lot of trauma, if there was a lot of trauma growing up, that is just hardwired in your subconscious mind from the ages of 1 to 7. And in order to rewire it and get back in there, hypnosis is a wonderful modality because you can go back and you get into theta state, and you can only get back into theta to rewire your subconscious mind.
So you can actually, in a sense, reprogram thoughts in some ways.
Correct.
Or at least relive the experience and change it, how the person might perceive that experience.
Correct. And I love Dr. Joe Dispenza. I just saw him in Las Vegas, and I read his book, Becoming Supernatural. And he works with people with chronic illnesses. So I love his books if you guys aren't turned on to him. But I love, we have 60 to 70,000 thoughts in one day. All of us do. And most of the 80% of those same thoughts are the same thoughts as you had yesterday and the day before and the day before and the day before. And Bob, you've heard of the definition of insanity, right? What is it?
Yes, repeating the same behavior and expecting different results. So that would apply to thought.
Yeah, doing the same thing over and over. And by the time we're aged 35 years old, we're just hardwired by the time we're 35. So it's really hard to change the hard drive. After 35 years old, we have to work a little harder. And the way to do that is through repetition of affirmations and using your imagination. And of course, going into kind of that theta state through meditation and through hypnosis, and downloading a new reality by going into new thoughts, new feelings, new choices, new behaviors, and new actions. And how I do that in my workshops, my effed up to fixed up workshops that I teach here once a month, is the first thing I do when everyone sits down during the workshop is I pass around colorful rubber bands, and they get to pick their favorite bright color and put it around the wrist. And I put them on a mental diet. They have to snap the rubber band if they complain, if they gossip, if they self-deprecate, if they criticize or judge. The last house on the block is judgment, Bob. It is so easy to judge people.
All day long, yes.
Right? To just judge. So I teach people to just go out into the world and find things that you love, not only about yourself, but love about the trees and the flowers and the breeze and the birds and the sky, and get out of yourself. Because usually when we're in a lot of pain, we're contracted and we're focusing on the pain. And I love what Dr. Joe Dispenza says. He says, go from convergent to divergent. Get out of yourself and get into divergent focus and think outside of yourself. And there's also a book by Lynn McTaggart called The Power of 8. And so I'm also doing groups of 8 in my home, praying for other people. And when you get out of yourself and stop thinking about yourself and your pain, that also she's finding not only does the receiver get healed in these Power of 8 groups, but all the senders get healed.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why the senders are getting healed is because they're getting out of themselves and focusing on someone else.
Let me ask you about, can you give me an example of maybe someone that you've worked with chronic pain that's had a transformation that maybe has lessened it to a degree where they're not so debilitated, and what happened?
Well, one of them was one of the biggest recent ones is I also use, like I say, I use so many tools in my workshops. I always say I throw this spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my tools is the Ho'oponopono prayer. So the Ho'oponopono prayer healed a whole criminally insane mental ward in the state of Hawaii Mental Hospital by Dr. Hugh Lin. And Dr. Hugh Lin, these people were chained to beds. Staff members would not come in. They'd call in sick because they just didn't want to go to the hospital and see these criminally insane people. And it was just a very challenging place. And Dr. Hugh Lin sat in a room by himself. He didn't even see the patients face to face. He held their files in his hand and he said to the files, "I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you." He kept repeating those 4 statements over and over again. And you and I, Bob, are about 60% water. When we were born, we were about 75% water. And we are more energy than we are matter. Our thoughts permeate out into the universe. And when we're sending that out, if you look at Dr. Emoto's, if you look at What the Bleep Do We Know, Dr. Emoto did an experiment with sending thoughts to water.
Yeah, I've seen that stuff. It's really amazing.
And so Dr. Emoto, by Dr. Hugh Lin sending out that energy, that powerful prayer, I've had huge miracles happen with that prayer, with my own healing of family members from mental illness with that prayer myself. I've experimented with it myself with family members. I've had huge miracles in my own life.
Mm-hmm.
So I had this woman come to my workshop because she had a schizophrenic son. So I had her do this prayer over and over, and I had her read Dr. Hugh Lin and Dr. I can't think of his name right now, Dr. Joe Vitale's book, called Zero Limits, and I had her read that book and go on YouTube. I'm a big YouTube junkie. I tell all my clients to go on YouTube, and I recommend YouTube videos for them to go and dive in deeper to this stuff.
Okay.
And anyhow, her whole world opened up. This woman was 75 years old. Her relationship with her son opened up. He started, he lives here on the streets in Los Angeles. He started saying, "Mom, I need help. I want to get off drugs." He was living on the streets for years. Her daughter said for the first time, "I love you, Mom." And then also what happened, she said her world opened up. She loves her life now. She also met the love of her life at 75 years old. A man asked her out, and they have fallen deeply in love. And this is just in the last 30 days of just being turned on to this Ho'oponopono prayer. She dove right in, and miracles, doors are opening up for her. Love, she feels love when she walks into coffee shops. She feels love in restaurants. She feels love on streets. She just opened up her world. Her world got bigger and expanded rather than contracted, and it was just from this prayer. But previously, I've been teaching life coaching, EFFED up to fixed up in 4 weeks for about 10 years now. And I've had people where one woman, her husband had Parkinson's, just huge decreasing of his Parkinson's symptoms in my workshops. I've had people, I put people in pairs where they're praying for one another, miracles of better jobs, better relationships. They're healing much better in their joints and their bones. One man, he thought he could never work again. We were praying for him. He went back to work, and he's just thriving incredibly in the movie industry. I have too long of a list, but I thought I'd share the one with the 75-year-old that just happened in the last month.
So you're really attributing it to prayer.
To prayer. That's one of our biggest tools, but for prayer, yes, absolutely. And also yoga too. I mean, I still go and teach private yoga, and I teach yoga on TV in the morning. And my favorite class because I started teaching a man with ALS with Lou Gehrig's disease. And when I first started with him, he had a cane, and now he's cannot move anymore. But when he couldn't move anymore, I invented Bed Back and Beyond. That's the name of the TV show. And I do bed yoga with him. So a lot of my clients can't get out of bed. So there's no excuse not to do yoga, no matter what condition you're in, because we do bed yoga. There's thousands of poses you can do in bed. So I created an episode called Bed Back and Beyond. My husband coined that name. I thought that was very clever.
Yeah, it's very clever.
Very cute.
And you use the hypnotherapy in conjunction with...
Absolutely. So when I go into people's homes, I assess them. And if they have chronic back pain, of course, I just start them on their back. I don't do any crazy yoga poses. First, I start them on their backs, and I do just gentle stretching. I do visualizations. I do affirmations. And we do as much yoga as we can do, and I kind of assess them from them lying down on their backs. My sessions are about an hour and a half. And then when I get them into Shavasana, which is corpse pose at the end, then I get them into a hypnotic state. And I do hypnosis with them through prayer. And I put all my clients on a mental diet. They can't complain, gossip, self-deprecate, or criticize. I help them change those 60 to 70,000 thoughts in one day. And 80% of most of those thoughts, Bob, are actually negative. Did you know most people who walking around today have 60 to 70,000 thoughts, and 80% of those are negative? Can you believe that?
I do believe it, because I'm one of those people, especially if I'm not paying attention. And most of them are about the future.
Yes. So coming into the now is also a beautiful way to slow down those chronic negative thoughts and to just be in the present moment. And especially with obsession, I find people with chronic illness are obsessed. So they're obsessed with their pain. So by being in the now and just saying, okay, let's just focus on the now. Sometimes I have my clients just walk around the block. Mm-hmm. And look at things not made by human hands, and just get in touch with the colors and the smells and the sounds. And I also teach people the end game or the end result. And I ask them what your end game is. What would it be like to be healed? What would it look like? What would it feel like? What will it smell like? What will it taste like? And I have them draw that landscape out in their mind. And we go into that theta state, whether it's chasing your grandchildren on the beach after hip surgery, chasing your grandkids in the beautiful waves, sand between your toes, breeze on your face. We had a Power of 8 group last Sunday. We do it now every Sunday in my house. And we FaceTime people, and we FaceTime a gentleman in that is paralyzed from the neck down, but now he has movement in his upper body. He can lift weights. And so he FaceTimed into our Power of 8 group. And so we do that. We all mentally rehearse, all of us in a group, and we visualize. His name is Christopher. We visualize him beautifully standing up tall and straight, walking on the ocean, with the waves crashing against his ankles and wet sand between his toes, and a big smile on his face, ear to ear, in awe of all the blessings in his life, and just feel it, smell it, taste it. And you have to marry it, I like what Dr. Joe Dispenza says, with an elevated emotion. When you're doing the rehearsal, you can't feel bad, because bad thoughts go into bad feelings go into bad actions, and bad actions go into bad results. So when you're feeling good and marrying it with the end game, it's going to infuse it and light it up and make it come to you so much more quicker.
It sounds like you're bringing people into the present. You're helping them to be aware of this moment rather than past pain or past emotions that are not working. I mean, everything you just said, I hope no one was driving, because I was getting a little...
That's cute.
Just that sense of feeling the trees and the clouds and the birds and all that, that's what I do when I meditate, I use a lot of I use music and sounds of nature because
Beautiful.
that actually helps me when I hear like water running and crickets and all those
I
kinds of things.
love that.
It's not, I'm not actually in that. I'm using a tape, but I can transport and feel that for the times I have been living in a city. That's a hard thing to do sometimes. It's
And
you get very detached from the natural world.
Oh, yes. And imagination is our biggest tool. And I was listening, I think his name is Neville Goddard, and he said, God is imagination. And usually we use our imagination to imagine the worst, most of us. I know most of us just go right into worst case scenario thinking, having $1,000 response to a nickel event. And we go right into worst case scenario of, I can't pay my bills and I'm pushing a grocery cart down Wilshire. But why don't we use our imagination?
How did you know that's mine?
Bob, that's cute. That's cute. Well, it's so funny we all go into the same worst case scenario thinking. That's cute, Bob.
Right. It always goes to I'm going to die broken alone.
Yes.
Probably next Thursday.
Yes, exactly, Bob.
Yeah.
So why don't we use our imagination to think of the best, Bob? And I think for me with my clients, I give them hope. I give them belief. We make our beliefs and then our beliefs make us, Bob. And a belief is just a thought we keep thinking. A belief is a thought we keep thinking. And usually our lives mirror our beliefs. So why don't we change our thoughts that we keep thinking? Because that's a belief. A belief is a thought we keep thinking.
Right. And if I'm thinking it, it must be true because I've been thinking it for a long time. That's what, I did a list at one point. Well, I still do it, but of the false beliefs that I've had over the years in different times.
Yes.
And I believe these things very strongly at the time. And, as you work on yourself or get older, you start to see, well, that really maybe isn't true. In fact, a lot of it's the complete opposite of what's true.
Yes.
It's so interesting, though, especially if you're told by parents or society that you're supposed to be a certain way so that it must be true.
Yes.
Right. Well, the classic is, women are the weaker sex. They shouldn't work, all these kinds of old sort of belief systems. You need to be constantly demure and polite. The men have to be macho and dominant. These are real obvious ones. And
you know what they're called? Rules. The guy that started, I can't remember his name. He started Mind Valley Academy, but he called them rules, which are bullshit rules.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just a belief system that I guess that we were born hearing from our parents and from society, right?
I heard this a lot with kids. It's like, well, why are you putting your kid in this class or this extracurricular? Well, that's what you do. That's what you do. Well, who says that's what you do? Well, everyone else is doing it.
Yes.
So that's what you do. Well, what if you didn't? I don't know. I don't know. I might be ridiculed or left out.
That's right.
Which is a big fear, of course, to not be included in the what everyone else is doing. There's a lot of ways to. That's a lot of what religion is too. It's here's the rules. If you want to get to the big thing, you've got to follow these rules. But who says this? And why is it? Why is it so? Maybe it isn't so.
All of us really want connection and love. And I think that's why a lot of us get caught up into that stuff because we want to feel loved. And my religion is kindness, Bob. I have clients who are Buddhist. I have clients who are Orthodox Jews. I work with a lot of Muslims. I work with Christians. I work with non-believers. But my religion is kindness. And I got that from the Dalai Lama. And I heard years ago, religion is for those who are afraid of hell and spirituality is for those who've already been there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a little bit more of the spiritual type. I grew up, I'm one of 10 children. I'm an identical twin in the middle. I have an identical twin who's 3 minutes older than I am. And she also studied yoga with Iyengar in Pune. And I studied Ashtanga yoga in Mysore, India, with Patabi Joyce, and I have more of an Ashtanga personality, and she has more of an Iyengar personality, which is a whole nother conversation. But yeah, I grew up in a crazy family with many different types of personalities and all that kind of stuff, and it was a really crazy, fun upbringing to have all these siblings, and I'm really close with all of them, and I'm so blessed. I
Wow.
feel like I have such a blessed life, and grew up in the Midwest and on the East Coast in Rhode Island, and studied yoga in Maui with Nancy Gilgoff, who's the first one to bring Ashtanga to the West. And I've had such a full life going to India and studying with Patabi Joyce, and I love what I do, and I take all these tools that I have and I get to share them. The Mental Diet by Emmett Fox, Neuroplasticity with Dr. Joe Dispenza, who healed himself after a car accident, and he's 30 years back pain free, sharing it with the world.
Explain to me a little bit more, because I've had a couple of people mention neuroplasticity, but no one's really talked about it extensively.
Okay.
So I know a little bit, but
Okay.
I don't know if my listeners even know as little as I do.
All right, that's a good question. So neuroplasticity is they're finding that we can actually change the brain. Previously, probably 15 years ago, they said the brain you cannot change, but we're finding that we can change the brain. And, I describe it this way, is that a lot of people are on the 405 freeway in their minds. The windows are rolled up, they're in bumper to bumper traffic, and they can't get out. They feel stuck. They feel like they're stuck in traffic. They don't feel like they can get off an exit. But we're finding through hypnotherapy, we're finding through meditation, we're finding through yoga that we can create new neural pathways in our minds, so we can get to sunset, we can get to the PCH in our minds, we can get to up in the mountain roads in our minds, and we can just have an opening. So now we can actually change our brains. We can actually become someone new through new thoughts, new feelings, new choices, and new behaviors. You're no longer the victim of your genetic download, or they're finding out with epigenetics. I'm trying to think of the gentleman that wrote a book on epigenetics, where epigenetics means that you can rise above your genetic download, that is not your destiny. If your family had mental illness or cancer or whatever, that does not have to be your reality. You can rise above your genetic download through neuroplasticity and epigenetics, through changing your thoughts. I have a card that I give everyone in one of my workshops, and I have them put it on their desk. And the card says, the only thing you have to deal with are your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing you have to deal with are your thoughts. And that's neuroplasticity. By changing your thoughts, you can change your feelings, you can change your choices, your behaviors, your actions, and your results.
What are some of the techniques? Because when I'm thinking about changing my thoughts, I forget. I start doing my day. I'm not aware. I'm into doing something because I need to get it done for whatever reason. People are going to work, and they've got to pick people up in their cars, and so life starts to put you on autopilot. Are there techniques? I mean, you mentioned the rubber band. So, let's say I'm somebody that wants to change my thoughts. What's the best way for me? What are some of the ways that I can do that so I'm not forgetting?
The best way is to become a junkie on YouTube and type in joy, type in getting along with my wife, type in the quickest way to change our thoughts and the quickest way is to hack into happiness. The quickest way to hack into happiness is through gratitude. So what you do is in the morning, and I did this for maybe a decade, I wake up in the morning, and the first thing I would do when I'd open my eyes is, thank you that I have a mattress underneath me. Thank you that I have pillows. Thank you that I have a duvet cover. Thank you that I can smell, I can taste, I can touch, I can see. Thank you that I have running water. Thank you that I have electricity. A lot of people don't have running water. A lot of people don't have electricity. 99% of the time when I go to the garage to go to work, my garage opens. 99% of the time, my car starts. I have running water. I took a hot shower this morning. I have food in my refrigerator today. I have a roof over my head. I get to go to work. I get to clean my clothes and do laundry. I get to take a shower. I get to feed myself. Some of my clients can't do that. They have to have a nurse. They have to have a caregiver. 2 of my clients just got dementia in the last 6 months. So now they have full-time care. I get to remember what happened yesterday. I get to use my legs and my feet today. I get to use my eyes and my ears. So it's all perspective. So it's not that I have to do this. I don't have to go to work. I get to go to work. I don't have to cook food for my family. I get to. So it's a perspective. But even if I did have issues and physical pain, I try my clients that have a lot of chronic pain, I try to help them focus on the things that are going well. What I mean by that is if they have chronic back pain, can you see today? Can you hear the birds outside today? Can you move your toes today? Can you brush your hair today? Like focusing on the things that you can do even though you have chronic pain.
You know, I did this fairly recently. I decided I was going to, so I wouldn't be as hard on myself as I've been in the past, which is, much less than it used to be. But I decided that it was really important to know that I was going to make at least 2 or 3 mistakes, if there is such a thing, a day. So the other day, I did something that was, I guess could have been perceived as a mistake. I don't even know what it was. I don't remember. But my wife said to me, she made a comment about it, not a positive one. And I go, oh, yeah, well, I forgot to tell you, I'm making 3 mistakes a day. I've decided to do that, and that's one of them.
I love it.
And she's kind of looked at me like, what are you talking about? And I just went, well, I'm going to make these mistakes every day. That's just part of the day. So is there something wrong with that? Is it, am I going to, I do a lot of great stuff in a day, and I also don't. And I don't really care that much anymore, as long as it isn't, horrible consequence. But isn't that a fun idea?
When one of my spiritual advisors says, Susan, I strive for imperfection.
Yeah.
Because when we're perfect, it creates shame. We're so controlled, and so we have to be perfect, and strive for imperfection. Wear life like a loose garment rather than a tight pair of underwear. Don't get your panties all up in a wad. Wear life like a loose garment.
That's a great saying.
Go with the flow. And I like my favorite song, Row, Row, Row Your Boat gently down the stream, not upstream. Go with the flow. Merrily, 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 merrily. Merrily is the highest expression of God. When you're in appreciation and joy, like Abraham says, you're connected, you're tapped in, tuned into God.
Did you ever think when you were a kid that was a spiritual message in that song?
No, not at all.
But it really is. If you're going down, and I've heard that particular YouTube. I heard it on YouTube. Abraham, that very thing you just talked about. I've actually heard that. And I was like, oh, this actually makes sense, because if you're going downstream with the flow instead of fighting it.
So one other thing I'll share with you is that sometimes it's easier when people don't know this stuff and I teach it to them. They're just open like little children. And the more you're open and less judgmental, the more it works. And so one gentleman, he was buying a house in Cape Cod. He was fixated on this one house in Cape Cod. And he said, Susan, they won't budge on the price. It's too much for me. And if you make your why bigger than your how and your when, it's more likely going to happen for you. And I said, why do you want that house in Cape Cod? He was living in Los Angeles and wanted a house in Cape Cod. He said, Susan, I was raised by my grandparents. I didn't have any family, and I want to break bread with my friends. I want to invite friends to my house and break bread with them and see the sunrise and the sunset in my beautiful home on the water in Cape Cod. And I said, okay, well, let's go into a visualization of you sitting around the table in Cape Cod in your beautiful home, breaking bread around the dining room table. Smell it, feel it, touch it, taste it, hear it, as if we're here, right now. Make it right here, right now, because if it's out there someday, somehow, somewhere, sometime, somehow, it won't show up. Do it so it's right here, right now. It'll come to you quicker. So we went into the visualization, and within 30 days, he found a house in Cape Cod half the price and twice as big.
Whoa.
Within 30 days, and closed escrow within 30 days of doing that visualization, because he made his why bigger. To be of service, to help other people. And when you make your why not just about me, I love that song. The only song I sing is do, re, me. And when you do, your life shrinks. But if you make your life bigger and your purpose bigger to help other people and be more inclusive rather than exclusive and include other people, your life is, it'll pull it in more quickly. So anyhow, he got this beautiful home in Cape Cod, and I went there. My mother died a couple years ago in Rhode Island, so I went to his house in Cape Cod and got to see his beautiful home. But when you make your why bigger, and my mission statement is to help people move up the emotional ladder out of physical pain, emotional pain, mental pain. I don't like when people suffer. So if I can help one person with any of these tools of the Ho'oponopono prayer, I teach living above the line. I teach people that the only thing you have to deal with are your thoughts. I teach people through my hypnosis. I teach people through my books that I write, and through my yoga that I have on TV every morning at 8 a.m. If I can help just one person feel a little better on the planet, then I've done my work. And that's my why. My why is to help people feel better on the planet. My goal is I want more peace and more love around the planet. I want there to be less pain and less suffering on this planet. I want there to be more peace and more love between all of us.
You seem like you really live this, a huge part of your day.
Yes.
Like it's become something that, and I'm assuming you weren't always like that. Were you as a child like?
I was hospitalized for depression in high school in 9th grade. I had suicidal ideation. I had chronic negative thinking. I had chronic depression. So yes, I crawled myself out with these tools, and I found that therapy did not help. I was in psychoanalysis in high school and in my early 20s, and it did not help.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that these tools, the mental diet and the Ho'oponopono prayer, and all these tools that I use in my life. I love Louise Hay. She's the gratitude queen. She died a few years ago.
I know who that is. Absolutely.
And I love Louise Hay, and I read her book, How to Heal Your Life. And I found that in my early 20s, and I found yoga in my early 20s. I was a big spiritual seeker. I would go to different temples and different ashrams, and I was just a big seeker to find peace. And the reason why I called my book Mixed Up to Fixed Up and my workshops Effed Up to Fixed Up is because I was effed up.
Mm-hmm.
And I did have chronic negative thinking.
Did your sister have a similar childhood, or was she a little more positive than you, your twin sister?
No, she was actually more negative. Jen, you're probably
Whoa.
listening to this, but so we're yin and yang, and she was more introverted and I was more extroverted. See, remember how I told you our childhood were formed from the ages of 1 to 7?
Mm-hmm.
So they couldn't tell us apart. We were identical twins. So they put me in kind of the special ed or kind of the not so smart class in 3rd grade because they couldn't tell us apart. And she was 3 minutes older. So they put her in the smart class. And so that immediately, remember with those messages that we get from our childhood, she was immediately catapulted, even though we have the same IQ. According to my mother, my IQ is 1 point higher. But I was a BC student, and she was a straight A student. I was very much social. I was the social butterfly. I loved friends. I loved people. I loved talking. Jennifer loved calculus. She helped me with my homework. She doesn't smile. She went to Berkeley and I went to USF. And when they would see her in San Francisco, they'd say, Susan, I saw you the other day and you look like you were really serious and not smiling. I'd go, oh, that was my twin sister that you saw. And
Is she still like that?
yes, she's very serious. She doesn't smile. She's very serious.
Now, if I were to say to her, you don't seem very happy, or you seem very serious, would she say, no, I feel good. This is the way I am? Or would she say, oh, I am kind of serious?
She's pretty serious. I mean, she has some joy, but she's not as out there as I am. But we do read the same books. We end up eating the same foods. We were both vegan for 20 years. I'm not as vegan anymore, but she's very strict vegan. But we'll find out we eat the same books. We read this. We eat the same foods.
Mm-hmm.
It's very strange. We're opposite sides of the same coin. Yin and yang.
I was going to say, I when I was in college, I lived with twin brothers, and they were almost like, if you put them together, they were like a complete person. And I'm not saying
but that's true.
And one was more artistic, but he was sort of flighty and sensitive, and the other one was very grounded and more serious.
Yes.
And pragmatic.
Yes.
And but when they were together, they were like a complete person. They were very distinct in those areas, more so than most people.
Interesting.
Yeah, I thought I'd never been around twins that much, but we lived in the same house for a while, so it was a great experience.
It's an identical twin, and I'm always fascinated with twin studies. My son's name is Ben Ryan, and Jennifer's son's name is Brock O'Ryan. My first husband was named Keith from New Orleans, and her husband's name was Kurt from Kentucky. Mm-hmm. And so we have a lot of similarities and parallels, and we both are interested in yoga. And she's an architect and a painter, as she's an artist, and I am more. I went a different route, but we're both really into psychology and the study of people. We really like the study of people, both of us.
Let me ask you this: this probably actually doesn't happen to you that much, I would think. When you run into very difficult people, which I'm guessing you probably don't because of the way you are, you're very disarming, like right away.
Right.
But when you do, how do you?
Oh, that's a very good question. I let's say I go to Pete's Coffee and there's a really rude person in there who cuts people in line or is very short, or and I always just quietly, and I have a few cranky clients. As you get older and you have chronic pain, and especially with medicine, you get a little cranky. But I'm very patient, first of all, very patient, but I always say, thank you for this teaching. They get to be my guru. And what are they teaching me? They're teaching me how not to be in the world. And I say, thank you, God, for this gift. This person who's rude on the streets, or rude in Pete's Coffee, or rude in my workshops, or rude, thank you for this teaching. You are my guru today. You are teaching me how not to be in the world.
Yeah, and you don't say that to them.
No, in my mind.
Yeah.
In my mind, I'm saying, thank you for that teaching. And I was talking to one of my students yesterday, and I was teaching her. I heard the story that, you know how people go to India to kind of get away and live in an ashram and get away, and they escape, and they want a peaceful, loving, kind place to meditate and chant and escape and get in touch with God. Well, I heard the story that in one ashram, what they do is they take the local drunk or the local curmudgeon and they stick him in the ashram, and the local drunk is putting his cigarettes out on your head when you're meditating, or spitting in your chai. And your goal in life is to be able to transcend the person putting their cigarette out on your head or spitting in your chai. If you can rise above it.
Yeah.
If you can rise above these people and rise above the situation,
and
because
not take it personally. Because
in life, that's what it's like. There's always someone putting their cigarette out on your head or spitting, metaphorically, in your chai. Or one time when I was in India, this gentleman told me that his teacher had him meditate on an anthill. And so he had to go within himself in lotus on an anthill, and ants are crawling all over him, but he's got to transcend and rise above, think greater than those ants crawling all over him, and go within himself and have equanimity and peace no matter what, no matter what's happening. Because in life, it feels like ants are crawling all over us. Kids with diagnosis, grandparents with, nowadays, a lot of my friends, their parents have dementia or chronic illnesses and they're taking care of them, or it feels like ants crawling all over us. Bills, high mortgage payments, single parenting, all that stuff. And we're in that flight or fight. And if you can go deep within yourself and rise above, feeling like those ants are crawling all over us, and think greater than our circumstances, then you have evolved and become your own guru.
Did you ever see that there's a documentary about a guy who went to live with the bears in Alaska?
Yes, I saw that.
Yeah, and eventually he stayed too long,
Yes.
and they got hungry and they ate him or they killed him. But my favorite part of that movie, there was a park ranger talking about this guy. And as the camera is on him, it's a, one shot on his face. And he is covered in whatever type of gnats or fleas or flies are up there. It's like a summer day in, Alaska,
Right.
or wherever it was, and covered. And he's just talking. They don't affect him. And I was watching this guy, and I go, well, he lives there, and he's used to it, and they really don't bother him. Like, if I was there, I'd be going crazy.
Right.
And I was like, that was such a great metaphor, like a symbol to me of, boy, if I could be like that in the world with all the gnats and flies
Yes.
not bothering me,
Right.
how great would that be?
Beautiful.
Yeah, I'll never get there.
Oh, I love that. Yes, you will, Bob.
I'm saying that humorously
Yeah.
because, it's a lofty goal, but who knows, right?
Come to my workshop.
Oh, okay.
It's this Saturday from 3 to 5. Come to my workshop and let's check it out,
That's
Bob.
a little sales is always good on
That's
the podcast.
cute. That's cute.
So let's pitch some of your things again. Effed up.
Effed up to fixed up in 4 weeks is a workshop that I do here. I conduct it here in Santa Monica. And you can go to my website, SUSANFoxley.com.
It's FOXLEY.
Yes.
Okay.
And you can find my weekly blogs there. My last one was about how to become a confident kisser. Did you know that...
Confident kisser?
Yes.
Oh.
I write on different topics, but
Okay.
did you know the number one thing men look for in women and women look for in men is confidence?
Did not know that.
Yeah. Did you know that? Could you imagine going on an airplane and buckling in the seatbelt and the pilot says, "Listen, I don't know, you guys. I had a few too many drinks last night and had a huge fight with my wife. I'm not sure if this
Right.
thing's going to land and we're going to make it to where we're
Yeah.
going."
I've
So
only done this a couple of times.
so make sure you know where the oxygen tank is, or a
yeah,
surgeon.
I guess,
Or a surgeon going, "Well, I've only done one other open heart surgery, so fingers crossed. Let's see if we'll make it through this one." So you really want a confident surgeon, a confident pilot, a confident lover. My topic was how to become a confident kisser. So you'll never know what's on my blogs every
Okay.
week. So
Well,
definitely check it out.
Okay. And that blog is called
Just go to SusanFoxley.com
Okay.
and go to my blog page.
Okay.
You'll love it. You'll love it. And
I've
then
been to your website, so I did check it out.
Oh, good.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also have on YouTube, Susan Foxley YouTube channel, all my yoga TV shows are on there, and they're only a half an hour long. And I have chair yoga, I have bed yoga, I have yoga for sciatica, I have yoga for after having back surgeries, I have yoga for you name it. I have clients who can't put any pressure on their joints. So I have yoga that puts no pressure on your shoulders or your hips. I have yoga for people that have had 2 knee surgeries and can't bend their knees. I have yoga where you're doing yoga with straight knees. You name it, I have it on there for every kind of ailment. So there's no excuse not to do yoga.
No excuse.
And if you rest, you rest.
Like to rest.
Bob, that's cute.
I'm going to rest after this.
So
Go home and have a big glass of water, and I'm going to rest.
That's cute. That's cute. I love it. So go to my YouTube station, Susan Foxley's YouTube station, and you'll find all my TV shows there. I'm going to do another TV show at local TV show, a yoga show, next in 2019, and we're coming out with another TV show as a life coach coming out in 2019 here in Los Angeles. So just keep posted. You see what's out. We'll see. We're going to be still evolving and growing, but definitely come to my workshop here in Santa Monica if you're here, or get my 10-year writing of Mixed Up to Fixed Up on Amazon.com, and or just throw me an email at foxleyyoga@gmail.com.
Oh boy, see, tons of information.
Yes, Bob.
Tons of information.
Yes.
And all those great books you mentioned and different people.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of information in this podcast.
Definitely, Bob.
So it's a lifetime of study just from one podcast, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes. And so you guys, listeners out there, thank you so much for tuning in. And if you have any questions or ailments or questions you have, email me, foxleyyoga@gmail.com. And Bob, it was such an honor and a privilege to be here on the show with you. And I'm so excited to go and check out your other podcasts.
Yes, thank you.
They sound really exciting.
Yes, The Exploding Human.
I love it. The Exploding Human. I love the title.
Explore, expand, and explode.
I love it.
My little logo. So
that
thank you.
That is awesome. Thank you, Bob.
All right. Have a great day.
Have a blessed day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All righty. Thank you, Susan. Wow. Enjoyed talking to her. That was a very pleasant afternoon, sitting on her couch talking about all this cool stuff, meditation, prayer, mindfulness, all these great things that we got to cover. And Susan has an incredible energy. I just loved hanging out with her for the hour that we did this. And I'm glad you guys were there to join us. So come back, listen to The Exploding Human. I love having you around. Thanks.